Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry I don't have a slideshow to present you. Basically, the state's evidence is the defense evidence. The truth is the truth. The facts are the facts. We haven't tried to hide anything here. We tried to present the truth to you. I think every detective said that Tracey Nix and the family were all honest with you. Tracey Nix is innocent of these charges, ladies and gentlemen. And I ask you, please do not convict her because of your emotions over the fact that this is a child. Now, I'm not going to get into it right now, but the state has misstated some things regarding culpable negligence. I chose not to object, but I will go over that with you. I can't imagine losing a child, what that does to you. When my daughter was a child, that was my biggest fear when she was growing up. She's now got children. And also fear loss of a grandchild. It hurts. It's horrific either way. This whole thing is a tragedy, ladies and gentlemen. But don't compound this tragedy by convicting of her of something she's not guilty of. This is what the state's proven to you. They presented 15 or 16 witnesses. They presented at least 3 videos. I may have miscounted there. They showed you that Tracey Nix was a school teacher for almost 40 years. Tracey Nix was a churchgoer for almost 40 years. Sang in the choir. Taught Sunday school. Even had retreats for children. Obviously loved children. Even wrote the curriculum for these retreats, these weekend retreats. She's also a loving, caring, devoted grandmother. Grandmother, ladies and gentlemen. Loved her grandkids too. Tried to help her daughter out with Uriel. Kept Uriel a lot. Did whatever she could for Uriel and for her daughter, Kayla. And she also cared about her other grandkids. On this particular day, she was supposed to go with her daughter Rebecca's grandson out to eat and to go Christmas shopping. So that's what we have. That's who we're dealing with. A good person, a good lady, a good grandmother. You saw 3 videos. Now, I'm kind of amazed here that the state shows the video from Beef O'Brady's as evidence of guilt. And I invite you to look at that video again when you get back in the jury room, because you'll have that opportunity, and just look and see what an attentive, caring, loving grandmother this lady is, still is, and how she treated Uriel. It's not something we made up. This is the video before all these events. But look for yourself and see. And don't let the state confuse you by adding these things, apples and oranges, as far as the element of culpable negligence, which is the crux of the issue in this case. Then they had 2 other videos that they showed Tracey Nix right after the incident, when she became aware of what had happened, how devastated she was, completely, obviously loved this child, loved this baby. And then down at the sheriff's office, and even though Detective Fletcher said, well, I'm not sure I told her that she was being recorded or not, obviously she didn't know that. You can see her reaction and how much it affected her and how much she loved this child.
We're going to hear more of the defense closing arguments coming up next after this quick break. We'll see you on the other side of this 4-minute break. We thank you for watching Court TV Live. We are your front row seat to justice.
back to Court TV Live. I'm Ted Rowlands. Big day here, tracking several trials across the country. In Florida, we're watching the closing arguments in the trial for that grandmother, accused in the death of her 7-month-old granddaughter. Tracey Nix, charged with manslaughter, leaving the baby Uriel in the hot car for hours. We'll jump back in, pick up the rest of the closing arguments in just a bit. In West Virginia, the Ponzi scheme murder trial for Natalie Cochran is underway. She, if you remember, is this pharmacist who admitted to defrauding people out of millions of dollars and is now accused of poisoning her husband and killing him with insulin back in 2019. We're going to watch those opening statements as soon as we're done with the closings in Nix. It's our next live trial, and it's a good one. We're also in Tennessee, continuing to watch testimony in the murder trial for Jason Chen. He's accused of stabbing his girlfriend to death, then stuffing her body into a suitcase, dumping her near a river. We'll be updating you throughout the day on Chen as well. Let's now, though, head back to Florida, pick up the closing arguments in the manslaughter trial for Tracey Nix. The defense closed. We'll pick it up right where we left off.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Tracey Nix is guilty of simple negligence, and we don't deny that, but not criminal negligence. And you don't really hear about people being criminally charged for simple negligence. Give you an example. You run off the road a little bit, maybe there's a hole there, whatever, 3 or 4 people die. You hear about traffic accidents, 5 or 6 people get killed. Simple negligence, nobody's charged. This happens all the time. Now, we discussed a little bit on opening statement about you hear people, parents or whoever, leaving babies in the car seat. If you don't know what the ultimate disposition is, you hear, well, they got arrested. Depends on the facts whether you're guilty. You've got to have culpable negligence, ladies and gentlemen. These criminal jury instructions, the state looked at them and suggest, they misinterpreted, and they've added, they've confused these 3 elements. There's 3 elements. There's no doubt that the child has passed away. Count 2, the death was caused by culpable negligence. And then count 3, the child was, Uriel was a child, and her death was caused by the neglect of Tracey Nix. And that's where he's confusing 2 and 3 and trying to sell this to you. Culpable negligence. Please listen carefully, and I can't stress this enough. Every person has a duty to act reasonably toward others, and this is what the judge is going to read to you. If there's a violation of that duty without any conscious intent to harm, that violation is negligence. That's what we have. Read it again. Every person has a duty to act reasonably toward others. If there's a violation of that duty without any conscious intent to harm, that violation is negligence. Conscious. Where have they shown you anywhere that Tracey Nix consciously did this? Now, this is culpable negligence. The defendant cannot be guilty of aggravated manslaughter by causing a death because of a merely negligent act. She forgot. That's the act. That's not culpable negligence. Forgetting. It's more than a failure to use ordinary care toward others. In order for it to be culpable, it must be gross and flagrant. Again, separate the act from what actually the result was. You have to separate the two. It's got to be gross and flagrant. She forgot. She simply forgot. Grandma forgot. Culpable negligence is a course of conduct showing reckless disregard of human life. Do you think she intentionally left this child in this car? Can you possibly, after seeing those videos, even think for a second that she intentionally and recklessly left this kid in this car? She forgot. Simple negligence, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm just reading the jury instruction. Culpable negligence is a reckless disregard of human life or the safety of persons exposed to its dangerous effects, or an entire want of care as to raise a presumption of conscious indifference to the consequences. Do you think for a second that she had a conscious indifference to the consequences? Again, she forgot. The results are horrendous. That's a separate element. They have to prove culpable negligence, and they can't do it. They can put on diaper bags. They can put on this timeline. They can put on this video from Beef O'Brady's, but none of that shows culpable negligence. This is extremely high burden of proof that they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Continuing. Wantonness or recklessness, grossly careless disregard for the safety and welfare of the public, or such an indifference to the rights of others as is equivalent to an intentional violation of rights. Did they come anywhere close to showing any type of intentional violation of rights? It has to be tantamount or equivalent to an intentional violation of rights. Culpable negligence is consciously, and again, I'm continuing reading the jury instruction. Culpable negligence is consciously doing an act or following a course of conduct that the defendant must have known or reasonably should have known was likely to cause death or great bodily injury. This is replete with gross, flagrant, conscious disregard. There's nothing here to show that. They've shown simple negligence. Again, every person has a duty to act reasonably toward others. If there's a violation of that duty without any conscious intent to harm, that violation is negligence. Again, that's what we have. These are very serious charges. I ask you to deliberate, read these instructions at 7.7a, and look at the definition of culpable negligence. They have not proven it. The whole issue here, again, is culpable negligence, and she forgot when she got home. And you say, well, why did she forget? I don't know. The brain's a strange thing. Why did she forget? Was it age? Distractions? They had roofers there that day. You had other plans. But again, she simply forgot. She simply forgot. And when she remembered, well, you saw what happened when she remembered. You know, Tracey Nix has to live with this forever, too. Carry that burden of what happened that day. But again, it was simple negligence. When you forget, you forget. And when you remember, why do you remember again? Now, I'm sure every one of you, regardless of your age, has had an incident or a number of incidents where you're supposed to pick up something or somebody on the way to work, and you get to work. You're supposed to pick up something at the grocery store on the way home. You forget. It's simple negligence. It was simple negligence here. The state was wrong when they said that there's a higher duty when it's a child. That's number 3. That's not number 2. There's nothing in culpable negligence that talks about babies as opposed to anybody else. You have to look at that. The actions of Mrs. Nix. The actions, not the results. There's nothing we can do to bring this child back, ladies and gentlemen. And again, I urge you to look at the definition. Again, he's taking simple facts. He's turning that into culpable negligence. And please don't make this terrible situation worse by convicting Tracey Nix of something that she's not guilty of. Thank you.
All right, the defense close. The prosecution will have an opportunity for rebuttal. We'll watch that together. Let's bring in Krista Ramey. She's a trial attorney in Los Angeles, California. Watching this. Overall, Krista, what's your take on this case? What'd you think of that close and that argument that this was forgetfulness, and that was this is what we're talking about here, and it wasn't culpable negligence because there wasn't a conscious effort of doing anything that she did in terms of leaving the child.
Yeah, and I think that's spot on, Ted, and thank you for having me this morning. I think that is where this closing by the defense was effective. You know, he really was very repetitive. He was very, it wasn't, I don't think, a really well planned and thought out closing argument, but what he did do was very effective, because in Florida and in every state, I believe, for culpable negligence, you have to have a wanton or reckless disregard for human life. And did the state prove that? That is where I think that the state may have, kind of I think that there was not really that part of it that I heard, that there was some kind of wanton disregard. Just because it's a baby doesn't mean that is, that standard or burden is met. You don't look at the result, you look at what she did, and was forgetting the baby in the car, wanton disregard of human life. Just for your viewers, in general, there's somewhere between 35 and 40 deaths per year of a baby being left in a car. We hear about these cases all the time. Very few are criminally charged because you have to have that wanton and reckless disregard for human life. And I don't know that the state proved it here. It's a heartbreaking, horrible case. And I don't even know why it was, tried to begin with. There should have been some kind of deal made.
Yeah, it is a horrible case. There's no underselling that. I mean, it's as horrible as it gets. The defense, one of the questions the defense attorney asked the jury is why? Why did this happen? Well, we don't know. Well, one of the parts of this case that the jury didn't get to hear, which we have heard in other hot car deaths, is expert opinions on why this happens. And to your point, that it does happen with a bit of frequency. Why are new cars now all equipped with a little message? It's a reminder when you get out of your car. Is there anything in your back seat, like a child, right? This isn't uncharted territory. But the judge in this case didn't allow the defense to bring in any experts. And I think it came down to, there was a pretrial hearing where he was frustrated by the fact that the experts didn't realize it was a full Daubert hearing, and he got mad and said, well, then no one's coming in. That's a disservice to this jury, because that question of why, if jurors aren't cognizant of the fact that this does happen, they might lop onto that and think that this is ridiculous, this lady should have known better, and there's no one else has ever done, I've never heard anything crazier than this. That was a problem, was it not, that judge's ruling?
I think it was, and I also think that, I know that I have a Lexus, and I think the car involved is a Lexus SUV similar to mine, and I get a warning from Lexus on my phone, did you leave something in your back seat, quite frequently. I never have. Sometimes it's just like a bag or a box or something that's back there. But I get warnings on my phone. There's a lot of evidence that the prosecution could have also put on in that regard. So it's kind of interesting that they chose to, this was put on very quickly, very simply, very straightforward in terms of how this evidence was put on the case. And I think that is because of the judge. Now, if there's a conviction for culpable negligence here, I think that ruling by the judge, by not allowing any of this evidence in by the expert witnesses, could be problematic for this conviction to stand on appeal. So I think that kind of gives you an automatic appeal in a situation like this that will probably get granted.
Yeah, and then, but if she's not out on bail during her appeal, who knows how long that could take? She could be rotting in prison. Let's get a break. We'll get the rebuttal close from the state, who really want this forgetful grandmother to spend the rest of her life in prison for this mistake she's made. Let's listen to their final argument when we return.
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV. This week on Opening Statements.
Did Natalie Cochran kill to cover up her financial crimes? We'll get you set for each day's proceedings in the Ponzi scheme murder trial.
Opening Statements with Julie Grant. Weekday mornings at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Think greater.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. The fate of 67-year-old grandmother Tracey Nix will soon be in the hands of a Florida jury. Nix faces a charge of aggravated manslaughter in the death of her 7-month-old granddaughter, Uriel. She told police she forgot her granddaughter was left in her car until it was too late. Let's go back into the courtroom now. We're going to pick it up with the state's rebuttal closing argument, the final words for this jury.
I started out when I spoke with you folks, discussing mistakes, and sometimes sorry isn't enough. And I would argue that the judge is going to instruct you on something that agrees with me. The court's going to instruct you that this case must not be decided because you're for or against it, because you feel sorry for anyone or are angry with anyone. And I agree with that. No matter which side, we're human beings. I apologize to you, the jury, because we asked you to do something impossible, which is set aside what makes you human, your emotions, but you have to do it. And I stress, and I would agree, and I would echo, look at those facts. Those facts reveal the truth. Those facts reveal the crime. Don't make that decision because you sympathize with her. Don't make that decision because you're angry at her. Make that decision because she did it. That's what you need to make your decision on. I do want to spend a few moments of my time addressing some of the things that the defense said. Uri, she isn't milk. She isn't groceries. She isn't an unlocked door. She isn't the pet you forgot to walk. She was a 7-month-old baby. And yes, you have to consider that when you consider whether something's reckless. What would a reasonable person who's in charge of a 7-month-old, who is responsible for her life, her survival, what would they do in that situation? The defense wants you to take the simple act of forgetting and focus on that and say, you can't look at the results. You can't look at the other factors. No, members of the jury, you have to. That is what tells you whether a simple mistake, simple negligence is reckless and wrong. And I would argue to you, members of the jury, that it is here today. She should not have forgotten about that child. She spent all that time with that child. Defense points out, well, I can't believe we showed you the video. Yeah, we showed you the video because that Tracey Nix that was at People Brady's should have been the Tracey Nix that got out of the car, but it wasn't. She was more focused on other stuff she wanted to do when she got home that she completely forgot about her. Not for 15 minutes, not for a half hour, not for 45 minutes, not for an hour, not for 90 minutes, not for 120 minutes, for almost 3 hours. Is that something a reasonable caregiver would do? Or is that something that's gross and flagrant and wanton and reckless? The act of leaving the child in the car, I don't think anyone would argue. If she, again, like I said, if she intended to leave that kid in that car and Uri was trapped in there, she would be charged with a very different crime. We're talking about, it can be confusing, we're talking about negligence. She doesn't have to have the intent to hurt Uri, but her actions did anyway. That's what we have to look at. It's a difficult case, members. It's a difficult crime. It's a difficult law. It is. But the facts are there. And once again, I need to remind you, she is not stepping on someone's foot. She is not leaving your eggs in the car overnight. She is a child. Defense counsel keyed in on a word, and there is a word in the culpable negligence instruction, conscious, and that throws people off. Conscious as opposed to unconscious. That's what that is. She was conscious the entire time. She should have known. She should not have forgotten. She had no reason to forget other than there were things more important, like playing the piano, taking care of the dog, feeding the pigs, finding her husband, those types of things. And defense counsel wants to talk about distractions. Well, for what we saw at Beef O'Brady's, she deals well with distractions. There were a lot of distractions around her. Everyone came up to see that thing. But she didn't forget Gary then. She didn't forget that. She took care of her. She did everything she was supposed to do. Unfortunately, Beef O'Brady's Tracey Nix stayed there. What came home was the one who committed criminal negligence. At the end of the day, members of the jury, I think you have to look at all the facts and circumstances. Not just the forgetting, but all of the surrounding circumstances. And you have to look at that and say, what would a reasonable person in that situation do? What would a reasonable person who is responsible for the care and safety of a 7-month-old infant do? And I would argue to you, it would be, remember. Don't forget. Don't leave. Be focused on her. Make sure she's okay. She's your little granddaughter. Care for her. Protect her. Get her out of the car. And a failure to do that, members of the jury, that's a mistake. That's criminal. That's a mistake. That's culpable. That's a mistake. That's the crime of aggravated manslaughter. That's the mistake that she needs to be held accountable for under the law. And you need to go back in that jury room and convict her. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to?